a controversy was started by a lot of people. A lot of professional photographers thought it must have been staged. It was too good a picture just to be caught. And Lou Lowry, the Leatherneck photographer, was upset because he had risked his life to go up there along with the troops that first went up, the first original group. And they did get into a little firefight up at the top and everything else. And he was very disappointed that somebody who walked up there very easily could get all this accord. Why did he get it? Well, of course, nobody had seen his picture on the island. Everybody had heard through radio broadcast, because we were getting radio broadcasts on everything that was being said about the military, that it was such a tremendous photo. And so he talked to Bob Sherrod. You've heard that name mentioned at Tarawa. Bob was with us at Iwo. And he mentioned to Sherrod that there must be a phony picture. Something's wrong. And so Sherrod wrote a piece, and he sent it into the office, into Time Life office in 40 Rock, and said, don't release this until you check with AP. And because, I mean, it was kind of a bad story. Well, anyway,
he wanted to check the facts on it.
Yeah, I wanted to check the facts on it. And so what people have to realize, that Time Life in those days was almost as big as the Pentagon in this big building in New York. And they had a radio station in there that worked with them, and mainly because there were more Time Life people around the world gaining information than there were radio people, you know, just commercial radio people. So they had access to all of the stories that Time Life had, and of course, like a great big organization, paperwork filtered through, going all the way down. And when they got the piece down there about this being a phony picture, apparently that little note that supposedly Sherrod put on it, don't release this until you check with AP, was absent. And they ran the story all across the United States that the picture was a phony. Well, of course, AP got highly indignant at this. Rosenthal, by this time, had just come into the West Coast, and they ordered him into New York and say, what the hell did you shoot? Where was it? He just said, I just shot a picture of the flyer going up. I didn't do anything else. I didn't pose anything, and so forth and so on. So with that, AP was ready to sue Time Life and Bob Sherrod. And so now I'm coming in with all of the motion picture film from D+8 to D+18 that had been shot by the 3 Marine divisions. And I'll explain that. It was decided at SINCPAC that we would make the final film that would go to the public concurrent almost with the end of the battle. And so the photo officer from the 4th Division took all the film from the first day until the 8th day. I took it from the 8th day to the 18th day, and the 3rd photo officer took it from the 18th day to the end of the battle. And we all were to get it in, get it processed, show it to the Joint Staff, then take it to Warner Brothers, and on the West Coast who would do the editing. And
the battle was still going on.
Yeah, the battle was still going on. Yeah. So consequently, I'm flying in, and it took more than 5 days. I was on one of the first aircraft to fly off of Iwo, you know, a DC-4 kind of aircraft. And so it took me 5 days to get from there into Washington, and I'm met by a colonel, lieutenant colonel, who was the deputy director of public affairs, whom I knew, and he said,
he met you at National Airport?
Yeah, National Airport, yeah, and I congratulated him for coming to pick up a lowly warrant officer who was tired, and I said, my house is only 5 minutes away from here, right down the street from where we are now. And so he said, no, you're going into headquarters. And I said, not looking like this. I hadn't shaved for 2 days, and I was in half battle gear, half khaki. I just didn't look like a Marine ought to look going into headquarters. And so, yes, you are. He said, get in the car, I'll explain it. So we got in the car, and I said, what's going on? And he said, well, you're going to the commandant's office. I said, oh, Christ, no. Not that. I knew General Vandergrift, but only just fairly generally speaking. I'd had some business with him before. And I said, why? Let me go home. Let me go home and shave and get cleaned up. He said, no, because sitting in his office is the Washington bureau chief for Time Life and the senior vice president from Associated Press. And they want a understanding of what happened in the flag raising. Well, at that time, I was the only person that had come back to the United States, short of either being wounded or dead, that were involved in the battle and would have known something about it. Because nobody was coming back that was walkable, because we had a hard enough time getting replacements, in for the fighting people, and so nobody was coming back. But anyway, fortunately, I knew what had happened. So I got in there, and after the commandant grins at me a little bit, shakes my hand, and he said, there's a problem between these two gentlemen about the flag raising, and can you tell us what happened? So I told him what happened. And when that was over with, everybody sort of took a deep breath and said, well, that's good. And
you also had the division record, or you looked at the timeline or something, didn't you?
Well, I had some paperwork with me that helped me talk through this, because it was a record of what had happened hour by hour during the days, and this was a part of the D2 Journal that I was able to get a copy of. But anyway, they never mentioned the second flag raising in the D2 Journal, and I'll get to that in a minute. But the problem basically was solved with the conversation that I gave, I could see almost in the eyes of the AP gentleman that he was at least relieved of this, and Time Life said that they would make an apology to this, and they would correct everything in their writings and what have you. So AP accepted that, and then that's when the commandant said to the Associated Press, he said, well, I think that photo could be of great help to us for recruiting purposes and other, and can we use it? And so the gentleman from Associated Press said that typical answer for anybody asking for a stock photo, sure, I'll give you 2 dupe negatives, and it'll only cost you $1 for every 8x10 print you make. Well, there was a dead silence in the place, and all the so-called, as we used to say, horse holders, which were the lieutenant colonels and colonels that would be assistants to the commandant, were sitting around the room, and it was like ice had all of a sudden come up. And guys thinking, well, hell, Rosenthal never could have taken the picture if we hadn't been there, all this sort of thing. So anyway, the commandant turned to me and he said, Gunner, and that's what they called warrant officers in those days, because they wore a broken bomb on their collar, bursting bomb. And so he said, Gunner, what do you think about that? Well, I took a big risk. I said, well, we've got motion picture coverage of it. It's in 16mm color, and I said, we can make blow-ups, black and white and or color from that. But I said, I want to be sure you understand that if we do, it will not be as sharp and definitive as Joe Rosenthal's 4x5 in a blow-up. There's likely to be little fuzziness with it, or not quite, something you can't quite discern, but it's there. And so while I was saying all of this, the Associated Press gentleman was having something going on in his mind, because you could see him thinking, actually, and he popped in with, he said, I think I'll change my position on this. I'll give you the 2 dupe negatives, and you can use the pictures in perpetuity at no cost. And I visualized that what he was imaging was that there would be 2 sets of pictures out, ours, which were not quite as finely sharp as his, and then his, but people don't read credit lines, so everybody would think they were both AP pictures, So anyway, that was that. But as soon as that conference was over, I called Warner Brothers, got the cutting room, and I got hold of the photo officer from the 4th. I said, have you seen, that was Lieutenant Schlossberg, I should mention his name, Lieutenant Schlossberg. I said, have you seen Bill Janau's film of the flag raising? He said, yes. And I said, what is it like? He says, it's beautiful. I said, thank God, because I had visualized in my mind if there was a big scratch on it, if it was underexposed, overexposed, or some other thing, camera failure, my next post would have been Iceland. And
that was one of the moments your career sort of flashed through your eyes, didn't it?
Yeah, that's right. It's just one of those things. I just took a big gamble because anything could have gone wrong.